For most people, when they think about Cape Cod, they think about the beaches, the tourists, the warm weather, summertime, right? So when we're talking Cape Cod during the winter, what is it really like? And as a local, what is it like to live on Cape Cod in the winter? Living on Cape Cod in the winter is a totally different experience than living here in the summertime. I live in Bourne, and the Upper Cape area really doesn't change that much compared to if you are in Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, those areas more towards the Lower Cape. We definitely do have less people here because we don't have all of our visitors here like we do in the summertime. However, there are still plenty of people here, especially in the Upper Cape and Mid-Cape parts of Cape Cod. So while there are less people, it's not necessarily noticeably less people. You're not driving down the roads wondering where everybody is. However, if you are to venture to Provincetown or any of those Lower Cape towns, yes, you will notice a very big difference. For one, if you go to P-Town and you walk down Commercial Street, there really is not much happening compared to the summertime where when you're walking around, you have to zigzag around people because there's just people everywhere. Now, you can walk down Commercial Street and you might see a few people here and there. One thing that you'll notice is a lot of the stores will be closed. So those ice cream shops will be closed, galleries most likely, some restaurants, cafes, things like that. There are some year-round restaurants that do stay open all year long, but the majority of them do close. So it is definitely like night and day when you visit the Lower Cape part of the Cape. So during the winter time, obviously it's mostly just year-round residents that are here. I will say it definitely is, it's beautiful to be on the Cape during the winter months, but you can't necessarily enjoy everything that the Cape has to offer during those cold seasons. But the beaches, the boardwalks, everything is beautiful here in the wintertime, especially when the snow first falls and everything is snow covered. It's beautiful here. Basically, there's more solitude and calmness on the Cape when you're here in the wintertime. So maybe if that's something that you're looking for, maybe if you're not a local and you're like, okay, I want to visit somewhere that's quiet, peaceful, maybe not necessarily go to New Hampshire, but just something a little bit different change of scenery. Maybe you live in the city. The Cape is a perfect place to visit, depending on how far out you want to go. Do you want to be halfway up the Cape, or do you want to be all the way up in Provincetown where there's not really a whole lot going on? Maybe you're trying to focus on a special project or something and you need a couple of days of quiet. So visiting the Cape during the winter might be something that you want to explore. So let's talk a little bit about the weather on the Cape. Consistently, we're looking around like 30-degree temperatures. It definitely can get colder than that. For example, today when I woke up this morning, it was 8 degrees. It has since gotten up to about 15 degrees, so not really much warmer than that, but it has been historically cold these last couple of days for the Cape. I would say on average, we're probably looking at 30 degrees, usually below freezing, but sometimes we will get some like mild days here. And if there is snow outside, the snow will start to melt, all of that good stuff. So we do experience wind with our storms that we get. So recently, this past weekend, we did get a storm. I think we got 12 to 15 inches of snow here on the Cape. And we did get a little bit of wind mixed in there. So luckily we did not have any power outages, but I did hear some areas on the Cape that did. not for too long, not anything crazy. So if one of your questions is, does the power go out often on the Cape? I would say during hurricane season, so around October, we do get some pretty good storms that will knock the power out for maybe a day. I've never really experienced anything where you've been without power for 2 days or more. Maybe a couple hours or maybe one full day. So if you are looking to maybe buy a property here, it might be a good idea to have like a whole house generator, or at least a generator hookup where you can easily do that if we do lose power. We recently added that to our house. Luckily we didn't have to use it, but we were prepared in case that we did. And next weekend we are getting another storm. So we definitely get snow. Sometimes because of the ocean effects, we don't get hit as hard as some other areas of Massachusetts do. So we are a little bit lucky in that sense. Plus we have all of the salt air. And when you have the salt air that's coming from the offshore, from the beach, it tends to kind of melt the snow. So then when you get closer to the ocean, you'll start to see like some little pockets that have snow drifts. So in some areas there's a little bit less snow, some areas have a little bit more, and that's because you've got the salt air. So of course during the winter months we have empty beaches, so we no longer have to pay to go to the beach. There's plenty of parking at the beach, so you can take your dog there. Usually during summer months, dogs are not allowed, and of course now they are, it being winter months. So I like to take my dog down there pretty often and just enjoy it. I mean, sometimes it does get a little bit windy and a little unbearable on certain days, but on like a warm, sunny day like today, it is nice to go there, go to the beach and just take a walk. There's also a bit of a slower pace here on Cape Cod during the winter months because there's less of a crowd. So when you're going to restaurants, or if you're going to a coffee shop, somewhere that's normally very busy during the summer months, you can probably get into restaurants without having to make a reservation. Of course, depending on what restaurant it is. Something that might be more high-end or along the water, you might still have to make a reservation for. Like, for example, Fisherman's View in Sandwich. If I wanted to go to dinner there on a Friday night, I think whether it was winter or summer, I still would probably want to make a reservation. Otherwise, I'd be looking at like a 45, possibly hour wait before I'm seated. So, but something to keep in mind is less lines, less crowds. It definitely overall is quieter here on Cape Cod. So let's talk a little bit about real estate. So what's the real estate market like on the Cape? Right now we are still experiencing low inventory, but of course during the winter months we're definitely seeing a lot less inventory. So there might be a higher buyer demand, but not much available. So homes are still selling pretty quickly. And again, this really depends on the condition of the home, the price of the home, the location. A lot of things come into play when we are talking real estate. But overall, if you do have your house on the market during the winter months, this time of year is when you will see more serious buyers, because if they're looking to buy a home during December, January, February, this is when they're serious because they're willing to go out in the cold and in the snow. And for a buyer, you might have a good opportunity to get into a property for maybe under the asking price. Whereas in the summertime or the spring, there might be more buyers out there, so more competition on properties. So if you're maybe looking to buy something, maybe even like an investment property, if you're looking to do an Airbnb and then have it ready for the summer months, looking at buying something during the winter might be a great option, because then you can purchase it, fix it up, and then have it ready to rent in the summertime. Cape Cod isn't for everybody in the winter time, but it's great for someone looking to possibly retire. You know, if they're not looking to go somewhere warm like the Carolinas or down in Florida, that's where most people from Massachusetts kind of venture to once they retire or once they get tired of shoveling snow. We don't get that much snow here, but sometimes we do. If you are a remote worker, Cape Cod can be a great area for you to consider buying a property. If you value quiet overnight life, Cape Cod also could be a great opportunity for you. And also buyers that are, if you're planning ahead, now is the time to maybe consider making a trip to the Cape, seeing what's available for properties that you could purchase, whether it's for a second home for you and your family, or if it's an investment property. In my opinion, I think that this is when the Cape shines the most. I also love the fall, but winter is beautiful and there's no Cape traffic. So here's a little glimpse of what it's like to live on Cape Cod from a local. It doesn't really change too much if you're in the Upper Cape area or Mid Cape, but when you kind of go up a little bit more up to the tip, you'll definitely notice a big difference in people, what's currently open. It's a little scarce. If you're thinking about living on Cape Cod year-round and seeing what it's like beyond those summer months, feel free to check out my other videos where I cover some different towns and show you what each town is all about. My name is Amanda Hodges, and I really appreciate you watching these videos. If you ever have any real estate questions, you can send me an email or my contact info, which everything is below for you.